Today I am going to share 3 progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I will share the photo that is famously associated with that story. But before we get into those stories, if you are a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that is all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that is of interest to you, please replace all of the like buttons, toilet paper with duct tape. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let us get into today's music stories. At 1 p.m. on November 2nd, 2020, an older man named Marcel Terre stood in his backyard hanging damp clothes on a clothesline. Marcel and his wife, 83-year-old Pet Landru, lived on a quiet street in the small city of One in Belgium, and usually their days were filled with household chores or visits from their kids. But over the last few months, Marcel had started to spend a lot more time taking care of his wife, because she had recently been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia that causes memory loss and confusion, and so Pet needed help remembering to eat or to take her medications on time, and sometimes she would just wander off without telling Marcel, and Marcel would have to go corral her and bring her back home. From Marcel, watching his wife struggle with this disease was absolutely heartbreaking, and so he did everything in his power to make her life as comfortable and happy as he possibly could. And so before he had come out to hang up the laundry, he had made sure to set his wife up in front of the TV with a nice lunch so she could eat and watch her favorite show. And so Marcel hung up the last piece of clothing and then picked up the empty laundry basket and headed back towards the house. When he went inside, he expected to see his wife still sitting on the couch watching TV. But she wasn't there anymore. Marcel immediately began calling out his wife's name, but she didn't call back, and then he searched the whole house and he couldn't find her. And so, starting to panic, he went outside. He searched the outside of the house. She was there. He even knocked on some neighbors' doors, but they hadn't seen her. And so at this point, Marcel was very scared, given the fact that his wife had Alzheimer's and could easily wander off and put herself in a very dangerous situation without even knowing. And so instead of waiting any longer to just hope she showed up again, he picked up the phone and he called the police. Less than an hour later, Marcel stood outside of his house looking at helicopters flying overhead, and he knew at least half a dozen officers were spread out around the neighborhood, knocking on neighbors' doors. There were 9 units searching the surrounding area. This huge search was all for Pet. Marcel was glad to see that clearly the police had taken the search very seriously, and so he was confident that they would find his wife and that hopefully she'd be okay. But the hours kept ticking by, and as the sun began to go down, there still was no sign of Pet. A police officer told Marcel that they would keep on investigating and hopefully find his wife as soon as possible. But over the next few days and weeks, Pet did turn up. Nobody had any idea where she was, and before long, weeks turned into months, and then months turned into 2 full years that nobody had seen Pet. And by that point, Marcel had basically resigned himself to the fact that he very likely would die without ever figuring out what happened to his wife. But then one day in early October of 2022, so 2 years after Pet went missing, one of Marcel and Pet's neighbors was at home on their computer looking at a particular website. And as they were scrolling through this website, they happened upon an image that as soon as they saw it, they froze, because this neighbor was very well aware of the fact that Pet had gone missing and nobody had found her. But now they were seeing this image on this website that basically gives away what happened to